All right, everybody. Good morning. Okay, so we're still going to be doing we're going to be using the Restream Studio. We lose some of our kind of flavor text and stuff when we do it this way, but it makes it much easier to bring in a guest. And this morning, by popular demand, I'm returning with Mario is has joined the chat. Good
Welcome to
morning, sunshine.
morning. Welcome to Flavor
Oh
Town.
dear Christ, we're gonna have to do something about that big white wall there. That's awful, but it'd be okay. That is a dramatic improvement. Actually, that's a huge improvement. So
Such technical wizardry here at the Romano House.
I applaud your witchcraft in this case. So we got St. Michael's been with us for has been sitting here patiently waiting for the show to start for like 15 minutes. And I applaud you for that, my brother. You want to talk about drawing first blood. That is the firstest of first blood right there. So a big hooah to you, my man. And
Can
Uncle
I,
Steve's with us, and I see little Cam, little Cam. And so I think we got a good show this morning. It's Super Tuesday. And I gotta be honest. Basically, the conversation to be had is we shouldn't care about Super Tuesday this year. It's
nope.
usually the biggest of big fuck deals. Remember back in 2016 when we had 15,000 Republican candidates all arguing on the stage, and it was still the Donald Trump show because everybody basically showed up. It, we didn't have a Super Tuesday that year so much as we had all of the other candidates just getting in line to get their new nicknames from the Donald.
Well, I mean,
That's a B, little Marco.
we lost DC, Maga Bros. It's over. We,
That's hilarious. I'm glad you brought that up. The headlines read Trump lost DC by 66%. Let me clear something up for you. What happened in DC is both Republicans showed up and one of them brought a Democrat.
the only Republicans in DC are the staff and clerical personnel for the sitting congressmen who happen to be Republican.
Right, they're not allowed to vote because they might give the game away.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Madison
Where do you want to start, man? I've
Cawthorn.
got here. Let me go ahead and throw up this slick little presentation that I slapped together. So Super Tuesday analysis. The So Super Tuesday is a crucial day in the primary election season with multiple states holding their primaries on the same day. And that is normally true. But this year, as you all know, Donald Trump has no competition. The idea that Nikki Haley is a viable candidate was BTFO'd before she got massacred in her own home state. This this idea that she won in DC. Oh, that let's be real. That is an indictment of the candidate. If you win the Republican primary in DC, that means that you're a Democrat plant.
Yeah, it's an anti-endorsement. Okay, I mean, it's like the worst people in the country want you, and that's not something you want. So, yeah, and the best part is it's not even a state. So,
Right. Yeah, the idea that DC even gets to have a primary is laughable.
hey man,
Um,
don't make fun of the downtrodden American Samoans. Okay, like they deserve to say something. For God's sake, I mean, look, I mean, if it wasn't for Hank Johnson, we'd probably have capsized their island by now. Okay, so show some respect.
Man, I'm working with a guy that's running against Hank Johnson, and hopefully we'll be turning out some videos for Bongo for Congress in the not too distant future. That'll be deeply entertaining. Hey, Cameron's joined us in the chat. He says I'm laughing at 9-0. So since you mentioned it, let's go ahead and talk about that a bit. So the The pressing issues that are being discussed, obviously, are immigration, inflation, and World War III. But the big news, okay, we can skip that bit. The big news is the SALT. So let's post
Yes.
the SALT. Fried pork sandwich says, "Ain't that America?" A guy led an insurrection almost 4 years ago. I'm just gonna read this tweet all the way through, and then we're gonna dissect this absolute psychopathy. Ain't that America? A guy led an insurrection almost 4 years ago and tried to interfere with the election, hasn't been held accountable, and will be allowed to run for office again. People who think the country isn't already lost are living in a dream world. Congress would have had to convict him for insurrection, even though that wasn't applied to any of the leaders of the Confederacy who couldn't run for office. And that will never happen because the Republican Party has decided it is okay with insurrection. So what we found is that if a major political party doesn't think someone acted illegally, they effectively haven't. So before anything else in this, the first immediate takeaway is that this sociopath doesn't just is completely lost in his confession. Right?
They keep talking
We've
about
watched-
the insurrection
we've
as if it's like fait accompli. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
in reality, it's like insert Big Lebowski meme. Like, well, that's like your opinion, man. Like it doesn't. There's nothing legally binding about anything they're saying. And then this bit about applied to any of the leaders of the Confederacy who couldn't run for office, that will never happen because the Republican Party has decided it's okay with insurrection. Yes, the Republican Party was so okay with insurrection, it ripped the country in half for 4 years and suspended habeas corpus for it. Okay, like stop it. You're insane. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, well, so this is classic confession through projection, right? His last sentence here. So we have found that what we found is that if a major political party doesn't think someone acted illegally, they effectively haven't. We've got the Biden influence peddling activity. We've got the Ukrainian money laundering activity. We've got the Clinton email scandal. We've got Barack Obama actually murdering American citizens on foreign territory where we're not at war. The Anwar al-Awlaki situation, and that one right there. That's a great example of, politically speaking, like, I'm not even totally against the idea of greasing bad guys in the way that Obama did it. But the fact is that what Obama did there was illegal. It's kind of like the whole felons can't have firearms thing. Like, I disagree with stripping people of their natural rights, especially the right to defend themselves. However, we do have a system of laws, and if a thing is currently illegal and you intentionally and knowingly do the illegal thing, then there is remedy for that. And that remedy is either you suffer the consequences as prescribed by the law, or you fight it in order to nullify the law. Obama murdered somebody while in office using U.S. military power to commit that murder. It's cool. It's cool. Like, one of the great points that's been argued related to the question of Trump's immunity in the insurrection case, which I'll get back to that in just a second because of something that fried pork sandwich said here, is if the Supreme Court decides that Trump does not have immunity in this case, then the law requires that Biden be arrested for his handling of classified documents, that Obama be arrested for the murder of the al-Awlaki kid, that Clinton be arrested for the email servers, and that the previous Clinton be arrested for infinite rapes. I think that's a reasonable count. You might want to wear some sunglasses. So,
well, let's hope they don't call us on that bluff, because the Republicans wouldn't they wouldn't fight fire with fire like with the Democrats. So
and that is an important piece of the problem. There is, unfortunately, the best Republicans you can vote for are cowards.
Yeah, so there's always 3 or 4 Republicans ready to just derail anything controversial that the Republican Party tries to pass. So
Correct. So this line right here, the second line here, a guy led an insurrection almost 4 years ago and tried to interfere with the election, hasn't been held accountable, and will be allowed to run for office again. Okay, that's whoo, there's a statement for you. Okay, I'm not super happy with the way that I'm still trying to get my head around operating this.
well, let's move on to the next one. Let's not get bogged down on this moron.
No,
This is
let me handle this real quick. Hang on. Let me handle this real quick. So it says, led an insurrection almost 4 years ago and tried to interfere with the insurrection, has not been held accountable. He was impeached and acquitted. So the
Correct.
idea that Donald Trump could even be charged with insurrection at this point, here's the salient point. He has already been indicted. That's what an impeachment is. Had a trial. That's what the Senate portion of an impeachment is, and found not guilty. He was acquitted. So the idea that he can be indicted and charged and prosecuted for insurrection now is a non-starter legally because it's double jeopardy, pure and simple. You cannot be charged with the same crime a second time without new evidence. That's substantial, compelling new evidence, and there isn't.
That's what I don't understand about the current Jack Smith case, and like no one's explained to me how. Like, well, I mean, technically he already did go to trial because he was impeached, and the Senate said no. Shouldn't that just be it? Like, what? How do you bring additional charges? It doesn't make sense. I mean,
so what Jack Smith is doing is is clearly a criminal action. And then this is the last bit I'm going to say about this particular cut. This guy goes on to say Congress would have had to convict him for insurrection, even though it was a plot. Forget all that. He says right here, Congress would have had to convict him for insurrection. Exactly. And they had that opportunity and chose not to.
Yep.
Based on the evidence. And okay, fair play. There was a major political element there. We know there was a major political element there because this president was impeached twice on strictly political grounds. We know they were strictly political grounds because we now know conclusively as well that the first insurrection, I'm sorry, the first impeachment, the whole Russia hoax thing, the Ukraine hoax thing, was entirely fabricated, and we have concrete, incontrovertible evidence that it was done by the DNC and the Clinton campaign, that they created false information, they created fake reports, and the Trump dossier, the Pissgate dossier, the whole Christopher Steele thing, all laundered through their law firm, Coy Perkins Coy, and we know that essentially they ginned up a fake conspiracy. There was a conspiracy to fabricate a conspiracy. And they haven't been held accountable.
The first impeachment makes sense in retrospect when you look at what happened in Ukraine immediately after Trump left office. It's like, oh, so this was a planned operation,
Right. It was always 100% about protecting their money laundering operation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's essentially all that the left is at this point. Planned Parenthood is a money laundering operation. Ukraine is a money laundering operation. The Middle East conflict was a money laundering operation.
Let's check in with Keith Olbermann, okay, who has assumed the Twitter mantle of Ron Perlman.
He's gone full retard.
He went full Perlman.
So he says, let me see if I can. I don't know if I can zoom this in. Okay, I can't zoom it in anymore in this configuration. So I'll just have to read it out loud for you. Olbermann starts with, the Supreme Court has betrayed democracy. Its members, including Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor, have proved themselves inept at reading comprehension, and collectively, the court has shown itself to be corrupt and illegitimate. It must be dissolved. Okay. let me. I need to throw this in there before we get any further into this hysterical psychopathy. Keith Olbermann is the news guy who's such a radical leftist that MSNBC, the most extreme radical left-wing Pravda, couldn't keep him on board. He's essentially the ISIS suicide bomber that everybody looked at and said, "Whoa, you're a little too unstable for us."
Plus, he was
you're
an
the guy
absolute,
that's going to accidentally blow up the bus, before we get off of it.
and he behaved like a monster backstage as well. If you take a look into his tenure there at MSNBC, I mean, you thought Bill O'Reilly, fuck it, we'll go live. You think that's bad? Like, no, it's nothing on Keith Olbermann. You thought.
Well, he goes on to say, okay, for one, Gunther Eagleman says, cry more, 9-0. And Olbermann says, those aren't tears, fascist, they're urine. I'm sure you enjoy being bathed in it. Okay. I think Keith was trying to accuse Gunther of some kind of perversion and, oh, you're into golden showers or some nastiness like that. I don't know. He's a leftist.
The left always gravitates towards sexual degeneracy at every opportunity. So yeah, of course,
absolutely. Yeah. But then Olbermann goes on to say, and this is hilarious, just delicious fucking salty tears. By the way, fathead, if this court now grants Trump this hallucination of presidential immunity, it applies to Biden too, and he could arrest the justices and cancel the election, and you couldn't do shit about it.
That would definitely result in impeachment. That would immediate impeachment is what would happen if he did that. Even the Democrats couldn't stand for that.
That tells us right there that at no point have these lefties understood the arguments that are made. The argument for immunity is that any official act taken as president the president is immune from prosecution from any official act taken as president. The remedy is impeachment. They're not saying that there are zero consequences for a president acting in bad faith or even breaking the law. They're saying that the only constitutionally tolerable remedy is that the Congress impeaches and the Senate debates and convicts. And there's an important reason for this. If Donald Trump had done something crazy and broke the law, or at least there were enough congressmen who believed that he had done something to break the law, then it is their duty to impeach him. And that's what happened in the case of the second impeachment, is enough congressmen pretended to believe that there was a legitimate breach of the law. They brought an impeachment trial. Trump was tried and acquitted, found to have done no wrong, declared completely not guilty of that crime. And that is the remedy for the actions of a president where suspicion exists. As much as I would love to see some jackbooted thugs go and wrap Obama up for murdering an American citizen on foreign soil, the correct remedy, even today, right, almost a decade after the end of Obama's presidency, the remedy, even though he's not still in office, because we're talking about official acts taken in office as president, the legal remedy is impeachment. The Congress could, in fact, impeach Obama, send it to the Senate for the trial, convict, and then he could be opened up to prosecution. And that's the argument. Olbermann right here saying that if Trump gets his immunity, that it applies to Biden too, so he could arrest the justices and cancel the election. You couldn't do shit about it. Yes, you could. It's called an impeachment.
You can't blame Congress for overreacting. They had just endured 9/11, Pearl Harbor, and Fort Sumter like all at once. So,
Yes.
it's understandable.
Yes. Yeah. You're of course referring to the May 29th insurrection.
Was that the BLM one?
Yeah, where they firebombed everything.
Yeah. So that was mostly
Oh,
peaceful.
no, you were talking about the January 6th insurrection that had no fire bombs.
Right, the one with the stochastic terrorism, which I
Yeah.
struggle to define
Oh,
that. Yeah.
oh,
All right, moving on. Let's get some more hot takes from Reddit. All right, we got let's take a look at you want to move on to Super Tuesday?
yeah, let's do that. We've got about 7 minutes left, and then I got to get on the road. So let's talk about what it means that we're having Super Tuesday. So normally Super Tuesday is when we've got a shitload of states that all vote on the same day. So I'll bring up the map real quick.
Here, let me go over it real quick. Okay, I got the states here. So
Yeah, you go ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead and
today we
talk about
got
it. I'll put up
Alabama, Alaska, Samoa, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, and Virginia will all be doing their primaries. Okay. Of those states, about half of them are open primaries, which means that registered Democrats can vote in them. And of those half, only 2 of them, I think this might affect the outcome. Otherwise, it should be a Trump clean sweep. Okay. However, we have open primaries in Minnesota, okay, and we know Minnesota is an utterly corrupt state, okay. Any state that has a Democrat governor and a Democrat attorney general for too long, you're going to find calcification and fortification around the election process there. So I wouldn't be surprised if now Trump will win Minnesota, but it might be close, okay. The other one would be Vermont, where Nikki Haley could basically pull the same strategy she pulled in New Hampshire, but it may actually be successful in Vermont. So of these about a dozen states, I got Vermont as the only one that could conceivably go for Nikki Haley.
I can't disagree with that analysis. Even California.
It would require too much effort to mobilize a population that size. I really doubt it. And for what?
Right.
But Vermont, small, ultra liberal, yes, that's possible.
And so for the rest of it, so let me basically Trump wins today. It's if you were gonna bet on something, I can hardly think of a safer bet than Trump wins Super Tuesday today. Now going forward, I got to say it's this simple. If Nikki Haley doesn't drop out of the race either tonight or first thing tomorrow morning, and just concede and say, okay, it's over, then that will itself be a tacit admission that her race was never about the sincerely held belief that it was possible for her to win. It was only ever, and we know this to be the case now. We know this to be the case now, that she was only ever there to be disruptive, make a bunch of money, and maybe build a brand name, maybe hurt Trump, right? But it was never about winning the primary. She never had the sincerely held belief that it was possible for her to be the next president of the United States. That said, if she doesn't drop out tomorrow, that will essentially be a tacit admission to those facts.
She's there in case Trump goes to jail. That's it. And that's why the Republican Party and the donor class are basically are still reinforcing her campaign. Okay, it's worth paying for on the off chance that Trump actually goes to jail, and then the Republican Party will have a ready-made candidate that they will immediately coalesce around, and they will basically it'll be full court press on Fox News to get everyone to accept Nikki Haley. It won't work. They will lose the election, and Republicans will go the way of the Whigs. Because a lot of people, I don't think the Republican Party really understands that over half of the party at this point are only Trumpers. Okay, to contrast with never Trumpers. So only Trumpers.
I used to think that I until probably a few weeks ago, I would have agreed with you on that. But frankly, the more I learn about. Okay, so we always knew that all these indictments against Donald Trump were absolute bullshit. They're all shady on the face of them. Um, for me to continue to believe what you've just described, Mario, I would have to ignore the bad faith in which anyone could espouse the belief that there was ever a real danger of Donald Trump going to jail. I don't think any of these people have ever actually believed that Trump was ever in any real legal jeopardy. They want the population to believe that there's a real possibility that Donald Trump ends up convicted of one of these various ridiculous charges. But
They have
we can
failed so
call
far.
them cowards all day, and that's all well and good. But the fact is that cowards can also be tactically brilliant. They can be clever. And I honestly believe at this point that none of them have ever sincerely held the belief that there was any outcome other than the complete dismissal of all of these charges. Now, previously, I would have argued that there was a high degree of possibility that he would actually lose some of these and end up in jail only because of the gross corruption of the districts in which the trials are being had. But it looks more and more to be probably the case that even a completely corrupt trial in DC with nothing but Democrats saying we don't care what the evidence is, we've decided to convict, he's guilty, etc. I don't think there's one of these cases that doesn't immediately get overturned either on appeal or rather quickly by the Supreme Court. And it's very difficult now to formulate an intelligent argument that any of these cases should not be considered in the context of a RICO case as part of a conspiracy to interfere with the election.
Yeah, but the process for getting, initiating that, I mean, it wouldn't even be off the ground until 2026. So that's kind of pointless.
Well, you're right, but part of that is once that appeals process has begun, that keeps him from going to jail until after the election.
Yeah,
even if one of these was a conviction.
Yeah, I think
So,
they've
the idea that Trump ends up in jail before the election, and like, hey, I bought it as a possibility originally, but the more I've thought about it, and the more I've considered how the legal process works, I don't think it was ever possible that Trump ended up in jail before the election.
You can look at what the Democrats are doing to Trump and the rhinos as well, because I'm sure they're involved. It's like a three-phase plan. Okay, so phase one is disqualification. That has failed. Okay, resolutely failed. That's what this 9-0 decision means. Okay.
Yes.
Plan B is convict Trump. Okay, that is faltering because the people in charge of these investigations simply can't help themselves by being utterly corrupt. Okay.
But they're so corrupt that they cannot help but have that corruption leak out into other parts of their lives, causing it to expose them. It's like you're the secret carrier of a plague and you're trying to get to the heart of the city, but everybody can see you coming because the homeless people are just dropping dead as you walk by them.
And then plan C.
All we have to do is shoot you down before you get to the children's ward.
Plan C so far has been successful. Plan C, I think, would be bankrupt Trump. Okay. Isn't he supposed to pay like $10,000 a day in interest on the settlement levied against him in Southern District of New York?
But that's accumulating as debt, which I think will be found to be illegitimate and discharged on that basis. So yes, they're attempting to bankrupt him.
I cannot imagine. I can't imagine what Trump's legal fees look like for basically the last 10 months. Okay, it must be staggering. Like,
oh yeah, it's
I mean, he's probably gonna have to sell buildings. He's gonna have to sell some properties at least. There's no way. I mean, no one's that liquid. You know what I mean? He's got an army of lawyers, and it's got to be bleeding him hard. That's why you got to buy them shoes. That's why.
Do you mean the white shoes?
When those shoes dropped, Kanye got on the phone. He's like he probably immediately fired a personal assistant. Like, so you got me these shoes, right? Yee, what shoes? You're done. Get out. Kind of, get on Craigslist. I got $100,000. Get me the fucking shoes now.
We could do a whole episode on how brilliant the shoes are, and we would be thrown off of every social media platform that ever existed. We would be preemptively banned from platforms that have not yet been created.
Yes, Google Gemini would future crime us. Okay, like.
Woo! Okay. Well, so like I said, I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in it there. I think we had a pretty good show here. You have any closing thoughts you want to share there, Mario?
Well, I'm happy about the 9-0 decision. My only concern is the wishy-washiness of Justice Barrett. Okay, we've seen this before. She's got that tendency to do that female emotional thinker, consensus-seeking kind of mentality, which sometimes is not appropriate. But like I said, that's her statements. Okay, following the trial, it's a bit dense if you don't want to go into it right now. But let's just say she voted correctly, but then she kind of provided.
I can give you 10 more minutes on it, and I would like to cover that real quick.
Okay,
so let's
go ahead.
Let's go ahead and touch it.
All right. You want to pull it
I'll
up?
go ahead and share that as well. It is this one.
I need a haircut bad.
Okay. So, Justice Barrett concurring in part and concurring in the judgment. I joined parts 1 and 2B of the court's opinion. I agree that states lack the power to enforce Section 3 against presidential candidates. Now, real quick, this was an incredibly broad decision. A lot of pundits and speculators expected the court to essentially say, "Okay, you can do this. You just can't do it to Donald Trump because it doesn't fit. The power doesn't fit this case." But we're leaving the door open to do something similar, enforcing Section 3 against a presidential candidate in the future. The court actually came out and straight up said, no, the states have no authority under any circumstances ever to disqualify a presidential candidate, at least based on the enforcement power of Section 3. If it could be done at all, it must be done by the Senate,
the legislative branch. Yeah,
by the legislature. It cannot be done by the judiciary in any capacity. And Barrett rightly says the principle is sufficient to resolve this case, and I would decide no more than that.
Right.
So yeah, basically, just Section 3 is not a tool for the judiciary, is what they came up with. If you want to throw somebody off the ballot, that requires an act of Congress. This suit was brought by Colorado voters under state law and state court. It does not require us to address the complicated question whether federal legislation is the exclusive vehicle through which Section 3 can be enforced.
Right. So that's where she left the door open. You know
because all the other justices essentially said, no. What we're saying is federal legislation is the exclusive vehicle through which Section 3 can be enforced. But Barrett, who I've never been real fond of, right? Back when we were talking about Barrett's confirmation, my only defense for Barrett was this is a Trump pick, and she's got a bunch of kids. So I feel like, and she's religious, so I kind of feel like I can trust her to play right by Roe. And frankly, now that we're rid of Roe v. Wade, based on many of the other decisions that she's made, I have very little use for her.
She adopted biological weapons to torment her own children, and that's all I'll say before you get thrown off YouTube.
Oh, I accept. So going forward, the majority's choice of a different path leaves the remaining justices with a choice of how to respond. In my judgment, this is not the time to amplify disagreement with stridency. The court has settled a politically charged issue in the volatile season of a presidential election. Particularly in this circumstance, writings on the court should turn the national temperature down, not up. That language right there.
Come on, guys, stop. Can't we just get along? Like, stop it.
You know what that sounds like to me, Mario?
What?
That sounds like, okay, look, we get it. We get it. Hamas fucking glided in and murdered a bunch of Jews, and we get it. Israel, you want to retaliate, but no, guys, let's just calm down. Let's just cease fire. You don't need to return fire. No, fuck you. They shot me. I'm gonna shoot them back. Look, let me tell you something. Every single time I've been shot at, I've shot back. And that is never going to change. So
every time I've been shot at, 90% of the time I was in a porta pot. It's like, really? I just sat down. Not like this. Not like this.
There are a few things more exhilarating than tripping out of a porta pot with your ACUs around your ankles and just firing blindly in the direction you think the bullets came at you from. Dick in the dirt, trigger finger just losing his shit. Ah!
Yeah. Well, anyway, I find Barrett's lack of faith disturbing. I don't want consensus. Okay, there's no point in consensus anymore when the other side has become so radical. It's like you're supposed to. It's like you're dealing with Jacobins. You know what I mean? How are you going to negotiate or compromise with Jacobins? Okay,
you're not.
They want terror. Okay. They want terror. They want the guillotine. They want mob rule. You can't negotiate with these people, sadly.
So that, I think that's as good a place as any to put a pin in it. So thanks for watching this morning, guys. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.